Hey guys, do you guys consider yourself a true car enthusiast? If so, how much do you really know? On today's video, I'm going to outline some of this industry's most used terminology and slang. This can be a test if you're a true modification expert or just a novice. So stick around. I think you'll learn something today. Hey guys, and welcome back to another Talking Mods. On today's video, I am really actually very excited to talk to you guys about this subject. It came from a suggestion, considering that a lot of us in this industry continuously talk in a certain type of lingo and a slang, and all of us do. It's within our industry, and we don't even realize it half the time. And that just comes with doing this for so long. So we wanted to make a video particularly about the terminology and the slang that we use in this industry, and so that you guys can learn it and understand when we communicate what we're trying to say. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I know my stuff about the car industry. Just hold up real quick here. What I'd like you guys to do is, if you want to, you guys can pause the video and grab a piece of paper. But what we're going to do is we're going to have 45 terms. Think about how good you are on this, and at the end of the video, I'm going to let you guys tabulate. Basically, just tabulate your mistakes. You don't need to tabulate all the correct ones. If you missed one, just be honest with yourself. This is for yourself, obviously, as you're watching the video. And I will tell you where you fall into in terms of your knowledge based on how many you've missed. All right, so I'm going to give you an example before we start this. The show is obviously called Talking Mods. Well, mod stands for modification. So if you knew that, didn't get it wrong, right? So you don't have a negative. So just tabulate them all up and then we'll start. All right, so the first one. Flush. Flush, well, if you don't know it, it is basically when the wheels of the vehicle are set up on the vehicle so that they're right in line with the fenders. So if I had a vehicle, I will put pictures up for you guys, so that they're right in line with the fenders. It looks nice and clean, it doesn't stick out, and it doesn't go in. Second one, number two, poke. No, not pokey, not the bulls, poke. Poke is basically the same concept here with the wheels. Now the wheels are sticking out a little bit past the fender. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit out. That's called poke. All right. The third one, tuck. Tuck is when it's inside the fender. You can sometimes see certain cars get tucked because they'll like slam it underneath it, so they'll have that tuck. So that's what tuck is. So number four, offset. This one is one that almost everybody usually gets wrong who are starting out in this industry. Offset is the distance between the mounting face of the wheel hub and the center line through the width of the wheel. So it can be negative if the mounting face is closer to the back, or it can be positive if it's closer to the front of the wheel. Number five, camber. Camber is the tilt of the wheel inwards or outwards of the wheel center line, so viewed on the front of the vehicle. An outward tilt produces positive camber, and an inward one produces a negative camber. So, sixth, stretched. This is when the tires are not the size that are necessary for the wheel. So basically, they stretch them out. So it's a smaller, almost looks like a rubber band kind of getting pulled. That's why it's called stretch. We're pulling the tire to fit onto the wheel. Stretched, used quite often in order to fit certain tires onto vehicles. Seven, meaty. That's the exact opposite. It's basically where you have a lot of tire on there so that you have the profile and the outside edge protecting the outside of the tire. It's another term that's used. All right, this one is three of them in one. If you watch the wheel video, you'll know number eight. So number eight is one piece, two piece, three piece. So the terms in the slang is we just say one piece, two piece, three piece. That initially right there means it's a forged wheel. One piece means it's a single block. Two piece means that it has the lip and it has the face, you know, the barrel and the face, and so forth. So you got one piece, two piece, three piece on a forged wheel. There you go. Number nine, rattle can. Rattle can is when you basically have a paint job, or they actually use a can in order to do the job, to complete it. Whether they rattle can a bolt or they might rattle can some interior part where you don't really notice it, but it can create an effect. Real simple. But it's obviously not the best type of job, but it's a job that's done by hand and you can kind of tell. Number 10, jobber. Jobber refers to a price list within the industry, and it's what is considered the basic level of wholesale. Now sometimes it'll be less, but jobber is the wholesale level of price. So when we talk about in the industry, hey, I'm giving you jobber, jobber means that it's below the MSRP price, and it's MSRP being manufacturer's suggested retail price, and then you've got your wholesale level price. It could obviously be lower than that, but there is a jobber price. Number 11, MAP, M.A.P, manufacturer's advertised price. Manufacturer's advertised price is, I'm going to actually add another one in here to make it a little harder, so I didn't add this into my list, but it's okay. Manufacturer's advertised price is the required pricing and that the item has. So if you've ever bought an iPhone, for example, the iPhone is always at the same price wherever it's sold, whether it's at Best Buy, at Costco, or at the Apple Store, right? Whatever the price might be. Maybe $9.99, well, it's always $9.99 everywhere because that's the manufacturer's advertised price, which everybody has to adhere to. And if they don't, they lose their ability to sell that product. Here's a different one that I'm going to throw out into this industry that a lot of people might not even know, even you as a manufacturer who should maybe sometimes use it. It's called Colgate pricing or unilateral pricing. This takes M.A.P to an even higher and stringent, more stringent type of pricing level. So, Colgate pricing. Basically, it's no nonsense. You screw up once. It's even if you do it behind the scenes, you lose your license to sell that product. All right. Number 12, boost. Boosted. This refers to the amount of pressure that is generated with either the supercharger or the turbos. If you have one of those, then you're boosting, right? You're creating a PSI. You're boosting. You're creating more power off those turbochargers. It boosts right into it, right? Throws back into the motor. Number 13, bagged. Bagged means that your vehicle, your suspension vehicle, is on airbags, air suspension. So if you've ever seen that, you can inflate them, deflate them. Bags. Number 14, static. Static refers to a suspension system that's like a coilover or a spring shock. It's static. It's not constantly moving like an airbag would. So that's where static comes from. Pretty simple. Number 15, staggered. We use this on a constant daily basis, and this is going to actually be where my plug comes in. If you don't know where this is coming from, I am the owner and CEO of Mod Bargains. I've been doing this for 17 years, and one of our big things that we do is we sell wheels, and wheels in particular come in staggered or non-staggered, and we sell a ton of them. So if you want help with any of that, the modification experts are happy to help you. Sorry for the shameless plug, but I'm throwing it in there. Anyway, staggered means that the width of the wheel is smaller on the front and wider on the rear. You'll see that often in sports cars because they want to get as much of the rear tires on there to get grip onto the ground. Staggered doesn't mean anything bad. It just doesn't allow you to do rotations versus non-staggered, which allows you to rotate your vehicle, meaning that non-staggered means that they're the same all the way. All four of the tires are the same all the way around. You'll often see manufacturers now have staggered wheels, if you didn't know that. So that was 15. 16. Double staggered. What does that mean? Well, besides having the width, smaller and wider, which we talk about staggered, it's actually also having double staggered means it's also having different wheel sizes. So for example, a lot of Corvettes will have an 18-inch wheel up front. The width is narrower. And then on the rear, they'll have a 19. So now they've gone to a bigger wheel and it's wider. So that's called a double staggered. Low profile. You'll obviously hear that, hey, we have a low profile lift. But what does that mean? Low profile refers to the tire. The tire profile of the actual tire. If you would have it up here, you have certain profiles. Well, low profile means that it looks a lot lower. They're still good. There's nothing wrong with them, but that's considered a low profile when it doesn't have as much meat as one of the terms was in earlier. All right. Number 18, fender roll. Fender roll, obviously this one, people hear the term and they don't know what it means and what it actually is. Maybe we can run a video right now. But basically what it means is that we take the insider fender liner, the plastic fender liner, and we push it up. They roll it, and because a lot of it sags, they roll it across so that it gives more clearance, especially for a low profile tire, so that it can clear the tire and it's not rubbing. So that's what fender rolling is generally used for. It is a service that some shops have. Here at our facility we do that. All right, pulled. Now this one is also kind of taking fender rolling and going a little further with it. This one's a little more scary, I think, for most people, because now that the plastic was pushed up, you might want to actually get even more, right? More clearance. Again, if you were thinking about flush and poke and all those crazy, you can sometimes put on some crazy nice setups on a vehicle. Well, pulled is actually pulling that fender slowly. They do this like process where they pull the fender, they kind of try to flare it out where it doesn't really compromise the vehicle in order to make the wheel fit. So that's pulled. All right, number 20. Hopefully you guys get this one. Actually, this was yesterday. I was talking to someone and I had said it multiple times, and they're just at the end of the conversation just were like, I don't know what this means. OEM. OEM is original equipment manufacturer. That's factory pieces. So let's say you own a Toyota and you have a Toyota part that came from the dealership. That is an OEM or a factory piece, OEM. So we use that quite a bit. Hey, you're looking for an OEM part. Makes sense? The next one, OEM plus. You might think, okay, well that's a part, but what is the plus? Well, that's not exactly it. OEM plus is a look. It is a description of that a lot of people, I think, especially in my style and a lot of people's style, that they like. Now you have, let's say a BMW. A BMW comes as a standard like look, and then they'll have that like M.Tech kit, and they'll have additional stuff to make it look more aggressive. OEM plus is what's in the OEM and the modification scene is basically increasing it but keeping it looking like still an OEM type of product, but not going crazy wild. It's not a rocket bunny kit. It's not something like wide body. It's not something that's going with crazy flares and so forth. It still looks like it's an OEM, but it's got that plus. You know that something's different about it. You know that it's more aggressive. It looks a lot nicer. So this is a common term that's used in terms of creating a style and look in this industry. All right, number 22, exposed. Exposed refers to any time that we're talking about hardware. Now that could be on a body kit, right? I said Rocket Bunny. Rocket Bunny is a company that has rivets on the outside. That's exposed, that's what it means. Exposed was actually started off within the wheel industry. And again, I'm just using this as an example, but sometimes you'd see it on a 1-piece, 2-piece, 3-piece, you'll see rivets across, right? Because when they're bolting down the face to the barrel, they'll use bolts and rivets and they'll have it exposed. These days you can get them non-exposed. It just depends on the look that you're trying to go for. So, often used term. Number 23, slammed. I'm not talking about wrestling here. Slammed is the look of which you put your vehicle all the way down to as low as possible. Sometimes it could even almost be kissing the ground, as they say. But again, usually you use like air suspension. It just depends on what you're using, what kind of springs and so forth, but that's slammed. 24, BBK. It means big brake kit. So oftentimes we just never say big brake kit, we just say BBK. And that's just a common term. If you know that one, great. This one's a cool one. Bacon fenders. So bacon fenders are when you see the warped nature inside the paint on the fenders. You'll see that when a fender roll has been done improperly or it's pulled. Usually when the fender roll has been done improperly means it wasn't warmed up, it wasn't done correctly. The paint usually warps, or just a bad paint job, you'll see that warping inside it. So, or the word warped. Bacon fenders, warped, same thing. All right, 26. Piggyback. We're almost through, guys. Piggyback. It's not jumping onto a pig and riding him. It's actually referring to tunes. And piggyback is when you take a computer chip and add it onto the computer, the existing computer. So it's an external computer that's basically sending the signals and telling the computer on the car what to do. Often used, it's a cheaper alternative. Well, I don't know about cheap. I think it's cheaper alternative. Some people really like it. Again, what I don't like about it personally, well, I could do a whole video on the segment. If you're interested in that, let me know. But it kind of you know, the one computer and the other computer are talking, trying to talk to, you know, correct each other and communicate to each other. So piggyback. The next one is obviously the opposite of that. It's called a flash. Flash tuning is when you take that computer that you currently have in the car, the existing one, the factory one, the OEM one, right? And now you flash it. That means you've written a program for it, and you're going to take that existing program off, put a new piece of program in there, and basically like doing a brain transplant in a human being and putting a new brain in there. Well, that's what a flash is for the vehicle. It's now the whole new programming designed specifically, usually for that vehicle. So that's flash. All right, number 28. These I think we're going to have to put a video for you guys, but well, I'll do my best to describe it. The first one, RASPY. It's kind of like, how can I describe it? This is when you get an exhaust and it creates that tone of when you have kind of like a raspy voice, right? But a much more amplified version of it, and it just has that not a very pleasing sound. So raspy, we'll run a clip for you guys. All right, the next one, 29, is drone. Drone is my least favorite thing in a vehicle, and hopefully drone doesn't happen with your exhaust throughout. Usually you see this when it's a poorly made exhaust, but drone is when you have an exhaust, an aftermarket exhaust, and it basically creates that noise within the vehicle. And that noise within the vehicle, you can feel it within, there's like this like humming sound, like this vibration sound that you know that's there. And if you're there for a while with it, you just get this headache and you hate it. That's drone, guys. So when we describe exhaust, that's, you know, at certain RPMs, we'll say, hey, what RPM are you getting it at? Is it within driving RPM? Or is the drone only at a higher RPM where you're never seeing it? Then it's fine. So drone. 30, burble. This is a big one. This is a really, really popular one. People want tunes to do burble. And burble should not be confused with backfire. Burble is more of like that kind of like, hopefully I explained that one as best as I can, but when I hear burble, you can kind of hear it like that. And that's a burble that some people really like. You'll see it a lot on older vehicles. And again, it's not a backfire. It's just that nice sound that you know it exists. Okay. Number 31, bypass or DV. Bypass or DV, meaning dump valve. So DV is a diverter valve. It basically takes the boost, after the car's been boosted, and the excess pressure, and releases it, or recirculates it into the through the motor, basically out. So while blow-off valve releases it into the atmosphere, diverter valves, a DV or bypass valve recirculates. Number 32, blower. Blower refers to anything that is usually a supercharger. So some guys will say, hey, do you have a blower on that car? That means that you have a supercharger on there. So pretty simple. Number 33, body kit. Body kit refers to anything that's in terms of items that are put onto the vehicle. Side skirts, front lips, front bumpers. Again, all these different components are part of a body kit. So number 34, debadging. Debadging is taking off the badge that's on the car. So if it had a certain, I don't know, whatever it might be on the car, I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a FRS and on the back of the car it says FRS. Well, you take that FRS off and you have a clean look. Number 35, donor car. Donor car is a vehicle that you purchase or get or find in order to get additional parts for. So especially if you're building sometimes an older vehicle, it's really hard to find all the components for. And you'll see that with a lot of car builders. And what they're doing is they usually will get a donor car. And they'll pick like parts of it, the best parts that they can, in order to put together the best possible car. Pretty simple. Drifting. We did a video about it. We'll put a link up there. Drifting is the act of sliding intentionally, making the vehicle slide. There was a whole Fast and Furious movie about it. That's what they're referring to. All right. ECU. We use this term a lot in the industry. ECU means engine controlled unit. ECU is basically the main computer of the vehicle that controls the timing of the fuel, everything, the throttle response, well, not the throttle, but all the electrical components, the combustion, anything to make the car work at its optimal ability. Number 38, compression ratio. Compression ratio is referring to the volume of compression inside the piston of the engine, right? So oftentimes compression ratio is very important when you're purchasing a vehicle. You want to make sure that the compression is set to the right manufacturers. It's not leaking. There's no leakage inside the compression. So when it's combusting, there's a compression inside when the pistons are moving inside a motor. So that's called compression ratio, used often. Number 39, decat, to take away the catalytic of the vehicle. Highly illegal, but decatting is just removing the catalytic from a vehicle. It obviously has been known to increase performance, but it is very illegal, as many of the videos that we have done talk about. Number 40, header. That is not the guy that's hitting the head of the soccer ball. Header refers to the exhaust manifold. So what comes right off the engine, that is a header. Also sometimes referred to as a downpipe. But the header is basically, you'll see that like spider web looking of all the off of it, basically to get the exhaust fumes off. That's a header. 41, stroker, stroked. Basically stroker, hopefully your head is not in the gutter, but what I'm trying to say is that basically the piston inside they changed the displacement within it for the combustion. So it can be shorter or it could be longer in order to change the combustion power that comes out of the motor. So that whole transition there can be changed. So you'll often hear stroker motor. 42, raked. Raked is a stance in which you take your suspension and set up the front to be lower and lower than and higher on the back. So let's be a raked look. We'll put a picture for you guys. Number 43, turbo lag. If your vehicle has a turbo, and obviously there's a turbine that spools, right, and it creates power. Sometimes the turbos are so big that they basically create a lag, meaning that you press that accelerator, and by the time the power comes on, it only happens at a certain level once that turbo spools up to it. So that lag, that time period in between, is the time delay between which you can feel the power come on. Hence, turbo lag. Not a fun experience. You want to reduce the turbo lag in your vehicle, just as a heads up. Number 44, wheel spacers. This one's kind of self-explanatory, but we use it a lot in this industry, and a lot of people put it on their vehicles. Wheel spacers, magically have one. You put it on into the hub area, changes the offset, which we already discussed, and basically changes the profile. So when you want to get closer to getting to a flushed fitment, which is, I think, ideal, you would typically use a spacer, and it goes on there onto the hub and in between the wheel. Pretty simple. And last but not least, number 45, unsprung mass. Part of the car suspension that is not supported by the springs of the vehicle. So what does that refer to? It's going to be the brake system, the wheels, and the tires, or any other components that directly connect to that area. Again, not being supported by the springs, those are going to be unsprung mass. Why is unsprung mass so important? Why do we use that term so often? Well, 1 pound in an unsprung mass component, right? Example like the brakes or like the wheels, the tires, and so forth. Well, that equals to 10 pounds. So we use that term quite often, especially in performance when we're modifying cars. All right, guys, so that was the 45. So tabulate your scores and I'll give you guys where you fall into. Okay, guys, before I give you where you fall into your rankings, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe. If you like this type of content and want to learn more information in this industry, please subscribe. If you did like this, hit the like. It does help us out. And if I forgot any terms that you want definitions on, or you just want to contribute, please put them in the comments. It helps us all out. Okay, guys, so if you missed more than 10, you have potential. All right, you have potential. It just means that at least you're watching this. That means you're getting into the car industry. You've learned a lot, and you are learning. You have the potential. All right. if you've missed between 10 to 8, you are a novice. You have just started out in this industry and are learning the terms and just getting your feet wet. So if you are between 7 to 5, you are known as what's considered a car enthusiast that's still out there learning, sucking up that information. You have still ways to go, but you are right into it. You're in the thick of it. You're probably modifying your car quite a bit. Now, if you got to 4 and 3, you're definitely a car enthusiast. So if you only missed 4 or 3, you're definitely a car enthusiast. You just have a couple little holes. You're obviously not involved in the industry, but you're in there. Okay, you really have probably been doing this for quite some time, is my guess. And if you are between, you only missed 1 and 2, well, you are a true car expert or an industry veteran for sure. Now, if you missed 0, first of all, I'll say this: if you missed 0, send us your resume, give us a call. I will hire you as a car modification expert. We are definitely looking for more people here, and we want those people here. But you are God tier. You know all the terminology. You are part of this industry for sure. You've probably been doing this for quite some time. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's topic. I will see you guys on the next Talking Mods.